Hello, welcome back to Zero Escape 2, Virtue's Last Reward. Hey, I stepped into the warehouse to find all the other teams already there. Quark and Clover, and Dio. The moment Dio spotted me, he dashed over to the rightmost AB room and slid his card through the reader.
Ambidex ゲートが開放されました。Ambidex ゲーム投票の締め切りまで残り45分です。
As he turned to look at me, I swore I saw a flash of a smug grin.
別に構わねえだろ。今回はシグマが戻ってきたのをちゃんと見届けてからゲートを開いたんだ。勝手な真似とは言わせないぜ。
But Tenmyouji and Quark aren't here.
そういえば、二人はどうしたんだ？
I guess they forgot something back in the room we found. They ran back to grab it real quick.
だったらすぐにやってくるだろう。何の問題もない。
While we waited, we exchanged information about the rooms we'd investigated. Unfortunately, none of it seemed very useful. None of us had found anything, and we were no closer to unraveling any of the increasing number of mysteries we were faced with. Dio, you jerk. Quark's tiny legs, and he has to get all the way here. Come on. With that discussion exhausted, we sat down to wait. Before long, 20 minutes had passed since Dio opened the door, and Tenmyouji and Quark were nowhere in sight.
なあ、いくらなんでも遅すぎるんじゃないか。
心配ですね。何かあったんでしょうか。
I'll go have a look.
では、私もお供しましょう。
Nah, I'll be fine by myself. It's not that far away.
ミイラ取りがミイラにならないようにね。
I don't think... Okay. Look, I'm just going to the director's office. I'll be right back. No big deal. Right, see you guys later. I gave a quick goodbye wave and stepped out of the warehouse. Huh? That's odd. There's nobody here. The picture's gone, though. Tenmyouji and Quark must have been here then. I laid out the 4B map. They must have taken the door that faces the warehouse. After that, they probably went through the warehouse and out the blue door to the elevator. Yeah, that's a much shorter route. On the other hand, I came through the red door, which is kind of the long way around. Huh, looks like we managed to miss each other perfectly. Well, this was a huge waste of time. Shoot. Might as well head back, I suppose. I packed up the map and was headed toward the door when... Huh? There was a light on where there hadn't been a light before. Oh. What? Oh, Aruba! Why is that thing on? We messed with it earlier, but nothing seemed to work. I felt a sudden wave of inexplicable, nauseating dread. The light stared at me. I swallowed and edged cautiously toward it. The machine was in arm's reach now. I stretched my hand out toward it, slowly. Oh. Who are you? Oh, you're... Darla. Oh, what?
この私だ。聞きたいことは星の数ほどあるだろう。だが見ての通り、私のこの姿は事前に記録されたホログラムの映像だ。したがって残念ながら、君の質問には答えることができない。あらかじめこのことを心得ておいてもらいたい。
I considered taking a swing at him, but decided that was spectacularly futile, and kept my balled fist at my side.
Saて、何から伝えるべきか。私も君に話して聞かせたいことは数えきれないほどあるんだ。だが時間は限られている。その全てを話すわけにもいくまい。そこで重要なことを2つだけ選んで君に伝えることにしよう。まずはシロアリの話からだ。突然こんなことを言ってもあっけに取られるばかりだろうね。君のきょとんとした顔つき、目に浮かんでくるようだよ。まあそれもそのはず。君たちに命がけのゲームを強要した犯人が突然シロアリの話を始めようというのだからね。拍子抜けするのも無理はなかろう。だがこれは君の人生を左右するほどの極めて重要な話だ。心して聞いてもらいたい。君はシロアリたちの作ったアリ塚を見たことがあるかね。一つの芸術と言ってもいいぐらいの見事な建造物だよ。非常に整然としていて秩序だっている。ところでシロアリたちはあの建造物を何かの設計図に基づいて構築しているのだろうか。無論そんなわけがない。彼らは遺伝子に刻み込まれたプログラムにのっとってただ単調な作業を継続しているだけだ。おそらくその一匹一匹は自分たちが何を作っているのかさえも分かっていないだろう。しかしそれを観察している人間たちは知っている。そのアリ塚のエレガントな佇まいを、機能美を、見事に計算され尽くした構造を、つまりアリよりも高次な知性を持った存在にしかその構造体の美しさは理解できないということだ。さて、ここで我々人類について考えてみよう。我々はどうして生きている？何のために恋をし、何のために子供を産み、何のために物を生産し、何のために文化を育んでいる。目的は誰にもわからない。我々はただ遺伝子に刻み込まれたプログラムにのっとって単調な毎日を繰り返しているだけだ。さあ、ここまで言えばもう分かってもらえるだろう。そう、要するに私が言いたいのは、シロアリも人類も同じなのではないかということだ。我々は日々の営みを繰り返しながらもその究極の目的については全く理解していない。つまり我々は何を作っているのか知らないのだ。それを認識できるのは我々人類よりも高次な知性を持った存在のみ。あるいはその存在から見れば我々人類は何かとんでもなく秩序だったエレガントな構造体を作っているのかもしれない。我々人類が悠久の時の中で し続けてきたその何かは、もう一次元高いレベルから見るならば、恐ろしく感動的な何かである可能性も否定できないのだ。そして今君はその片鱗を知ろうとしている。違うかね。いずれにせよ、これで一つ目の話は終わりになる。これが私の伝えたかった重要なことのうちの一つだ。では続けて二つ目の話に移ろう。これは君の人生を、いや数十億という人々の命をつなぎ止めるためのものだ。いささか唐突ではあるが、
I don't think that helps enough.
ある一つのパスワードについて教える。爆弾01を解除するためのパスワードだ。
Bomb.
いいかね。一度しか言わないからよく聞くといい。01の解除用パスワードは BQZ RGJ DXR だ。
I know what he was talking about. What bomb? Was he saying there were bombs too? If he guessed at my future confusion, he showed no sign of it.
さて、以上をもって私からの話は全て終了となる。最後に一つだけ忠告しておこう。今ここで聞いたこと、見たことについては決して他の者たちに話してはならない。もしも話せば、その時点で君にはペナルティが課せられることになる。では、またいつかどこかで会う。その時を楽しみにしている。
Wait. You can't just spout all that crap and disappear. I found myself yelling at empty air. Wait, so we get this stuff in one path, the hologram disappeared, and then we go use it in another path. So it's a different timeline even. Or what kind of an idiot does he take me for? Termites. Other dimensions. How could that have anything to do with kidnapping us? Bad. This is bad. I think I got kicked out a nearby shelf.
アンビデックスゲーム投票の締め切りまで残り10分です。プレイヤーは速やかに投票を済ませてください。所定の時刻までに投票を行わなかった場合、未投票者の選択は強力に設定されます。
Oh, I need to get back. Not like there's any point staying here. I spun around and ran out of the room, toward the warehouse.
じっちゃん、シグマさんが戻ってきたよ。
どうにか間に合ったようじゃな。
Where are the others?
AB ルームの中だよ。
They went in already.
そうじゃ。
Why didn't you two? Have you been waiting for me?
じっちゃんが投票の前にどうしても話しておきたいことがあるからって。
まあ大したことではないんじゃがな。わしとクオークは次のラウンドで必ず協力を選ぶ。ただそのことを伝えておきたかったんじゃ。
And you had to tell me that no matter what? Seems kind of pointless. I mean, words are cheap. You can promise whatever you want.
確かにそうじゃが、わしらには根拠がある。必ず協力を選ぶという根拠がな。
Okay, go ahead.
わしとクオークの BP は共に8。正直に言うが、すでにリーチがかかっておる状態なんじゃ。 この状態でわしらが BP を9以上にするにはどうすればよいか。まず前提条件としてシグマに協力を選んでもらう必要があるわけじゃが、この条件の下ではわしらが協力を選ぼうと裏切りを選ぼうといずれにせよ同じなんじゃよ。
You get to 9 whether you got 2 or 3 points.
そうじゃ。であるならば、あえてシグマを裏切るまでもない。共に協力を出し合ってポイントを増やした方が賢明じゃろ。
True, but you must have considered that all choose betray. That would mean you choose betray to protect yourselves.
だからじっちゃんはそれはしないって宣言してるんだよ。
うん。
Can I trust you?
もちろんじゃ。
Don't push it, Sigma. Alright, tell me one thing. Let's say we do this and both ally, everybody gets 2 points. That means you and Quark will have enough to leave, which is great for you. But I'll be stuck with a measly 5. How do I know you aren't going to just open the number 9 door and leave us in the lurch?
保証はある。
How?
わしの言葉がそれじゃ。わしらは目標値に達しても決して9の扉は開かない。そう誓おう。他の者たちを置き去りにして2人だけで脱出するわけにはいかんからな。
僕も誓う。約束する。
Man. So all you've got is a promise, huh?
わしは約束は必ず守る。信じてくれ。
お願い。信じて、シグマさん。
Alright, fine. I'll trust you.
投票の締め切りまで残り2分です。
では頼んだぞ、シグマ。
絶対に協力だよ。約束だからね。
With that, they turned and ran into the AV room second from the right. Well, guess I should get moving. I think everyone else is good.
投票の締め切りまで残り1分です。
I had a decision to make. Should I trust Quark and Tenmyouji? Well, I could believe they were telling the truth and still betray them. That would bring my BP to 6. I'd be that much closer to 9. And choosing betray would guarantee that they wouldn't try and escape without the rest of us. Betrayal seemed like the safe bet. But
お願い。信じて、シグマさん。
yeah,
絶対に協力だよ。
PS5.
約束だからね。
It's either they have to do 2 more rounds or I have to do 2 more rounds. Tenmyouji I could betray easily enough, but Quark? What was I going to do? So either Sigma's going to be stuck here for 2 more rounds, or they are going to be stuck here for 2 more rounds.
9、8、7、6、5、
Sigma can get out in 1 more round.
1。
I'll do ally. And then they would have to stay 2 more
第3ラウ
rounds.
ンド終了。結果は倉庫内のディスプレイに表示されます。お疲れ様でした。 アンビデックスゲート
But
を
also,
開
they do
放
have
し
to
ま
keep
す。
playing, even if they do have 9 points. If they stay, they have to keep playing, don't they? They don't just they don't just stop, do they?
アンビデックスゲーム第3ラウンドの結果を発表します。一同、画面にご注目ください。
This is such a scary concept. It just gets scarier the longer I play. Trade. Yep. Tenmyouji and Quark betray.
結果は以上のように確定しました。各自、バングルの数字をご確認ください。
Oh, it does go over 9. Okay. Hey, what, guys? Why'd you betray me?
クォークのことは関係ない。投票はわしの独断で行ったんじゃ。
ちっちゃん。
Alright, fine. They only need 9 to get out. It goes over 9. Why'd you break your promise to Tenmyouji?
わしが誓ったのは次のことだけじゃ。わしらは目標値に達しても決して9の扉は開かない。
What? So, you're not going to leave?
いいや、そうではない。脱出はもちろんさせてもらう。
What?
見ろ、あれを。四つ葉が9の扉の前に立っておるじゃろ。
What? Don't tell me. Uh,
そんな。
9の扉が。
バカ女。開きやがったな。
結果発表によると確か天明寺とクォークも
The words were barely out of her mouth when Tenmyouji and Quark ran past.
おい、待てよ、この野郎。
翼、まさか脱出するつもりなんですか？そうじゃなかったよ。開かないでしょ、9の扉。
どうして？
外に出て仲間を呼んでくるの。ゼロボスを捕まえるためにね。
天明寺とクォークも行くのか？
ああ、すまんな。
ごめんね、みんな。
どうじゃシグマ、納得したか？わしは約束を破ってはおらん。9の扉を開いたのはわしらではなく四つ葉じゃからな。
I'm not happy. That's some shady stuff, Tenmyouji.
まあどうとでも言うがいい。わしはどうしても外に出なければならんのじゃ。一刻も早くここを出て
Either way, she would
奴に
get
制
out.
裁を下さねばならん。
Either way.
やつという
無論ゼロボスのことじゃよ。
ゼロボスがどこにいるのか知ってるって言うんですか？
ああ、ここまで来たのじゃからもう行っても構わんじゃろ。わしはゼロボスのことをよく知っておるんじゃ。
なんだと？
I see what he means by this being able to go on forever now, then. Oh. Painful. Do you have to have exactly 9 to leave?
開放されました。9の扉閉鎖まで残り9秒です。
さあ、行くよ。天明寺さん、クォーク。
うん。
ちょっと待って。シグマさん、これ読んでもらえる？
Quark held something out. I looked down to see 2 pieces of folded paper. What is this?
手紙。AB ゲームの前に所長室で書いたんだ。 これを読んでもらえればじっちゃんと僕のこと分かってもらえると思う。だから、はい。
Oh. He pressed it into my hands.
それじゃあね、シグマさん。
Oh no, Clover still would have left even if I betrayed. Then he turned and ran toward the door, Tenmyouji and Quark following in his footsteps. I was so surprised by the letter that I didn't even try to stop them. Before I could think of anything to say.
ではな。
じゃあね。
9の扉を閉鎖しました。これにてノナリーゲームは終了となります。お疲れ様でした。なお、ゲームの終了に伴い、施設内にある9の扉以外のすべての扉は開放されます。どうぞごゆっくりとお過ごしください。残りの余生をこの施設の中で。
くそ、言っちまったな。
あとはあの3人が助けを呼んでくれることを祈るばかりだな。
そうですね。
I looked down at Quark's letter and slowly unfolded it. His handwriting was still slightly uneven, but he'd filled both pages with writing. I began to read. Oh yay, it was a really stormy day when he found me. He said the rain was coming down so hard it almost hurt, but somehow he managed to hear a baby crying. What story you have, Quark? I guess I must have been crying pretty loud. What sob story is this? He took me home and did his best to raise me, but he'd never been married or had a kid before, so I think it was really hard for him. He couldn't figure out how to mix the formula, so he was always carrying the directions around with him. Also, I guess I was a pretty picky eater, so if he didn't get the water to formula ratio just right, I wouldn't eat it. I guess I was kind of a pain, huh? How long did this take you to write, too? Did you have enough time? Oh, but he didn't give up, and now here I am. When he found me, I was really, really small, and he was worried that I might not make it. Quark, you write so good for your age. That's why he named me Quark. Quark is a really, really small thing, and I was really, really small too. He's just a little kid and he can write this good. Grandpa didn't need to worry though, because it turned out that I was pretty tough. When I was 1, he forgot I was sleeping in the bed of his truck and drove off. I rolled out and went off the back, but I didn't even get scratched. I'm not surprised though, he's Asian. I started walking when I was 2, and when he wasn't looking, I fell down the stairs. I didn't get hurt then either. When I was 3, I got really sick. I had a super high fever for a week, but eventually I got better. I guess you could say I'm pretty lucky. Anyway, I didn't really have any more accidents after that, and I was a pretty healthy kid. By the time I was 6, I'd started helping Grandpa out with his work. His job was to gather junk from abandoned buildings. Then he'd fix it up or pull out the useful parts and sell them. There were plenty of abandoned buildings, but finding good stuff in them was hard. You had to know which parts were useful, or you could end up wasting a bunch of time. Every time I'd find something, he'd explain to me what it was, how it was supposed to work, how to fix it, all sorts of things. Usually though, I just wanted to finish up work so I could go to the theater. The theater came to our town once a week in a wagon. They'd show old news or movies. I went every single week, but Grandpa only went once in a while, and he'd only go weeks when they showed movies. Oh yeah, I didn't know that I'd been adopted until I was 7. One of the other kids on my block told me. I guess after Grandpa found me, he looked all over town to try and find somebody who'd take me. The kid from my block actually had a mom, and he'd asked her if she would take me too. I gotta admit, I was pretty shocked when I heard that. There weren't a lot of kids with parents around, so hearing that someone lived with his actual mom was pretty impressive. I was also kind of surprised that Grandpa had tried to get someone else to take me. Did that mean he didn't want me? The kid who told me about Grandpa trying to get rid of me was a real jerk. He was totally spoiled, and he bragged to everybody about how he had a mom. He liked to come up to me while I was working and say stuff like, "Must be hard not having a mother." It had never bothered me before, but after I found out that Grandpa had adopted me, I started to think that maybe he didn't really want me. If I could work on my own, then he could get rid of me. I was scared to know the truth, so I never asked him. Then one day he took me to a bar in our neighborhood. During the day, of course. He went there sometimes to drink scotch, but I'd never gone before. When we got in, he just walked up to the counter with that grumpy look he has, and I thought, oh no, he's gonna make me work here, but I was wrong. I saw him pass something to the bartender, and then he picked me up and set me down on a stool next to the counter. The stool was pretty high, especially for a 7-year-old kid, and my legs just dangled off of it. It seemed really, really high to me, and I was pretty nervous. Eventually, the bartender came back over with a glass of scotch and another big glass full of something else. As I looked closer, I realized that the second glass was full of some sort of brown liquid with a scoop of ice cream in it. It took me a minute to realize what it was. A root beer float. I'd never seen one before. I was so surprised. Root beer was even more expensive than the nicest alcohol in the bar. To me and the other kids, it seemed more like an urban legend than a real drink. But there it was, right in front of me. I stared at the float. I still wasn't sure it was real at that point, and then turned to look at Grandpa. He looked back at me. I didn't know what to do, so I turned to the bartender. He'd already turned around and moved off, though, so I figured he must have put the glass down in front of me on purpose. It still didn't seem like it could be real, and I was just staring at it when Grandpa told me to hurry up and drink it before the ice cream melted. His gruff voice sounded like an angel's. Is this really mine? He nodded. Words can't describe how awesome it was. I'd never tasted anything like root beer before. The creamy sweetness of the ice cream made my entire head feel light. I felt like the luckiest boy in the whole world. That's not an exaggeration. I really thought that. The root beer float was delicious, but what made me even happier was Grandpa. When I looked over at him, he was smiling. I know that's gotta be hard for you to imagine, but he really was. Right then, I didn't care whether he just found me and adopted me or not. He bought me a root beer float. That made me way luckier than some kid who had a mother but had never tasted root beer. Of course, after we left the bar, he was the first kid I bragged to. So Grandpa and I were doing pretty good. Until the fight. I was in a super bad mood that day. I'd torn one of my shoes that morning, and some old drunk guy had yelled at me. All the junk I found was totally useless. The day was almost over, and I was fed up, so I just grabbed some random trash and took it back to the house. When I showed what I found to Grandpa, he frowned. He started going through each thing I brought back, explaining why they were all useless. I got really mad and just yelled, "I don't care." Then he got mad and I couldn't take it anymore, so I ran away. I was pretty upset, and I started thinking that maybe Grandpa had only adopted me so he could raise me to work and make money for him. After a while, I went and hid in an abandoned building, but by then I'd started to calm down and think that maybe I should go back and apologize. It had started raining pretty hard though, so I decided I should wait for it to stop. But that was just an excuse. The truth was that I was nervous. Part of me knew I'd done something wrong, but I didn't want to admit it. The rain didn't stop though, so I just sat there staring out at the gloomy gray sky. I imagined Grandpa coming to get me. It kept raining all night, and he never showed up. I gave up waiting and decided it was time to go home. I was about halfway there when I heard somebody groaning. Well, at first I thought I should just ignore it and not get involved, but I went over anyway, and it was Grandpa. He was totally soaked, and I could tell right away that he'd been there for a really long time. They just have old orchestras making songs for these sometimes. I yelled, and he opened his eyes a little bit. He smiled weakly and said he was glad I was safe. He spent all night out in the rain looking for me. I felt awful. Grandpa had been out in the rain looking for me so long that he'd collapsed. I was horrible. He'd heard me crying in the rain, but I hadn't heard him. As I ran to get the doctor, I promised whatever God might be listening that if they would only save Grandpa, I'd never ask for another root beer float ever again. He got a real bad fever, and his temperature wouldn't go down for days. The doctor said that if it kept up, he'd die. If he died, then I'd be all alone. There wouldn't be anybody left to care about me. The thought of that happening terrified me. Fortunately, I must have passed some of my luck on to Grandpa, because a week later, his fever finally broke. I was glad he wasn't going to die, but I was also a little scared. What if he had decided he didn't want a stupid kid like me around anymore? My plan was to apologize as soon as he woke up, but when the moment came, my brain just stopped. Grandpa started to talk, and it took me a minute to realize he was apologizing. I didn't know what to think. He explained that he was an old man, and that meant he was probably going to die sooner rather than later. He was strict with me because he wanted to make sure I'd be able to make it on my own after he was gone, but maybe he'd been a little too strict. All of the things I'd worried about had been stupid and selfish. Grandpa cared about me a whole lot. He'd been worried when I ran off, and he'd gone out into the rain to look for me. I tried to apologize, but when I opened my mouth, I just started crying. I don't think I've cried that much since I was a baby. But he just smiled and patted my head. I asked him if he'd ever regretted adopting me. His eyes got all wide and he said, "Of course not." He told me that he was looking for a really important lady, and because of that, he'd had to give up on pretty much everything else in his life. But when he took me in and started raising me, he felt like he'd gotten some of what he lost back. That was when I decided I'd stay with him forever. Even if he said I couldn't. They're pretty close. Oh. Oh, Quark. Tenmyouji. Okay, that's Tenmyouji's ending.